Now clearly open water swimming has many different challenges to pool swimming, and naturally many of you will just make adaptations to your stroke and how you swim when you do get into the open water. But it is worth just taking a moment to think about these and see if there's any areas that we can improve on. So today I've got 5 tips to help you get faster and to excel in the open water, many of which you can actually work on and improve in the pool. Now when swimming in the open water, it's actually really helpful to increase our stroke rate. That's the number of strokes that we take per minute. So basically how quickly our arms move. And there's a number of reasons for this, but mostly due to the fact that the water is moving and it's more turbulent. That means that that glide phase that we might normally do in the swimming pool with that nice long stroke just doesn't happen quite as easily and quite as well. We just don't move quite as freely through the water. Also, because the water's moving during that catch and pull phase, we may just lose purchase of the water and lose that power. So you want that next arm to come around nice and quickly. And also, the nature of open water swimming and triathlons, you quite often have other people around you and they may knock your arms. It's something that just naturally happens in these sort of events. And again, that may mean that you lose that power during the catch and the pull phase. So again, you want that arm to come around nice and quickly. Now this may be something that you adapt to quite naturally when you're in the open water, particularly if you're wearing a wetsuit because you're more buoyant in the water and that just makes it easier to increase your stroke rate. But it is something that you should practice also when you're in the swimming pool. Just try and play around with increasing your stroke rate and finding that happy medium for you. Something that I've personally found quite useful for myself is actually the water polo drill, so swimming with your head up and nice quick arm movements. Well, the next part of the stroke to look at is the recovery. That's where the hand exits the water at the back and then re-enters at the front. Now typically in the pool what you see people striving to do is swimming with a nice high elbow recovery and the hand trailing quite close to the water surface. In the open water you may well have seen people swim with this slightly wider and straighter arm recovery, myself included. Now I will point out this isn't something that I strive to do and change in my stroke, it's just something that happened naturally with time. And I'd say that's the best bit of advice for you guys too. Don't strive to change your stroke to this wider, straighter arm recovery. Just allow it to happen naturally with time. But it's good to know why we may have this wider and straighter arm recovery. Now, as I mentioned already, in the open water, we've got this choppier water, it's more turbulent and moving. So with this low arm recovery or low hand recovery, there is a tendency to catch the water surface, the chop, and then sort of tumbling down into the water and disrupting our stroke. Also, as I mentioned already, we've got a lot of people around us when we're swimming in the open water, particularly in triathlons. So having that straighter arm recovery just means that we've got less chance of getting our arms caught up in one another. And then also, it allows us to get closer to another swimmer so we can draft off them. And finally, that straighter arm recovery also can help to increase that stroke rate that I mentioned just before. Now, as I've mentioned a few times, the open water is more turbulent and you may feel that movement of the water head on and side to side whilst you're swimming, particularly when you've got other swimmers around you and perhaps when you're going into a turn buoy, for example. And as a result of that, you may well feel that as your hand enters the water, you just don't have quite as much control of it. You feel like you're off balance and perhaps just can't get that catch at the front of the stroke and into the pull phase. Now, a way to work around that is actually just be more assertive with your hand entry. That means coming in with a faster hand entry, almost like you're punching into the water. If you come in with a slower hand entry, you're basically at the mercy of the waves, that movement of the water, and other swimmers that may knock you around, knock you off balance, out of position, and basically waste your energy. Now, you may have noticed with these last 3 skills I've touched on, they were kind of pushing you towards this choppier and splashier stroke. And yeah, you're right, look at my stroke for example, particularly above the water. But you just want to make sure that below the water part is still performed well, you're getting that nice catch into a nice strong pull. We're now on to sighting, which is a pretty critical skill for open water swimming, given that we don't have that black line to follow like we ordinarily do in the swimming pool. So we need to lift our head up out of the water to sight buoys, landmarkers, and even other swimmers that we're trying to follow. But how much we lift our head up out of the water can have a big impact on our swimming. If we lift our head up really high out of the water, our legs are going to drop, creating a braking force, almost like a seesaw effect. So ideally looking to just lift the head up out of the water a fraction, minimizing how much our legs drop. I call it crocodile eyes, just the eyes coming up above the water. If you're interested in finding out how to sight for open water swimming, we've got a video on that already. I'll throw you to that at the end of this one. That being said, there are times when you do need to lift your head up a little bit higher out of the water, maybe when it's choppier, you've got more swimmers in front of you, just can't simply see where you're going. And being able to adapt to that is really important. So what I'd say is just in your open water swim sessions and even in the pool, just practice lifting your head up and sighting, lifting your head to different degrees and seeing how it affects your stroke and how you can adapt to minimize those effects. What I tend to do is just pick the odd rep during a session, and I'll just do a couple of sights per length, finding that feel for the sighting, how it changes my stroke, and going from there. And another way to improve your speed for the same or less effort while swimming is drafting. I've alluded to this a few times in today's video, and if you're a cyclist or triathlete, then you may be well versed in drafting on the bike, but perhaps less aware of drafting in the water. But drafting in the water can also help to save you energy and potentially make you faster. Now, I do understand that many of you out there may just be slightly apprehensive about open water swimming full stop, let alone trying to swim in close proximity to another swimmer and trying to draft off them. But what I've found is actually by giving someone something to focus on, trying to get them to swim closer to someone else and trying to draft off them can actually take their mind off of all of it and take that stress out of the situation. Also, by drafting off of someone and kind of relying on them for direction, you don't have to sight necessarily quite as much. Don't fully rely on them because there is a chance they might be going off course slightly. And what I'd suggest is actually practice this as a group or with a couple of friends, either in the open water or in the pool. Take it in turns to lead that group and trying out different positions in that line on the feet and if you can on the hips. It's actually more effective to draft off the hips, although just be aware that the person at the front that you're drafting off will feel the effect of that drag a little bit more. I hope you have enjoyed today's video. If so, please give it a like and don't forget to head on over to our social media channels for GTN and give them a follow, and don't forget also to give us a little subscribe just down below.